Hi, welcome to my other show. My name is Susan Rushton, and this is my show called Muse. It's the show on which I'm privileged to, I'm thrilled to, I'm allowed to, I'm tickled to talk to people who are visited by one of the muses, the artistic people. This is a wonderful. These are great people who follow their noses, follow their hearts in the art world, and even people who are not necessarily creative, as in building, painting, acting, but even those of us who are interested in this stuff. Those are the people I'm talking to. Today, my guest is a gentleman I've met a couple of years ago. This is Matias Bombal. Matias, thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Good. Matias, if you are at all involved in movies, watching movies, classic movies, you may have, I'm sure you've heard of him, especially if you listen to Mary Jane Pop on K-High Radio. In fact, that's how I met you. Mary Jane you had just finished being interviewed by Mary Jane, and I was just about to be interviewed by Mary Jane. And Mary Jane interviews me once a month on K-High generously because I run Silver Screen Classic Movie Series the first Saturday of the month at the Auburn Library, auburnsilverscreen.com. Okay, so we're done with that. Matias and I are part of a mutual admiration society. We admire each other because we adore classic movies, old theaters, big theaters. The idea of seeing movies with a bunch of people, and the more I learn about you, Matias, the more I investigate your website at mabhollywood.com. The more I recognize that most of the time I'm talking to people who might need my help at promoting themselves, at getting the word out, but you've gotten the word out for years. So this is me. This is for me, you guys. And I hope you enjoy the ride. Matias, what about old movies? What about old movie theaters? Tell me about that, your interest in it.
It's an environment, an architecture of fantasy in which you were in that era king for a day and saw gods and goddesses of the silver screen who were in your imagination, these incredible residents of some gods of some type on Mount Olympus because they were
so
perfect
big.
Complexion, so large, beautifully dressed. They always had the wittiest things to say. They danced perfectly. They had adventure and a gregarious nature and made you come back every single week to see them again. It's a fascinating cultural experience because of, I think, one of the great inventions in all of the movies, the close-up. The close-up gives you that intimate sense of a person that you don't know, and yet you feel you know them because here we are as close as we are together. I must know that person. I know every wrinkle in Myrna Loy's nose from countless films. I know her. I know that woman.
Yes. Okay. So how old were you when this fascination started?
I was 3, almost 4, and I went to the Elmwood Theater in Berkeley, California, which was a neighborhood theater of about 800 seats, and there Walt Disney's Fantasia was being shown in a dye-transferred Technicolor print, and I was enraptured by the beautiful music, the beautiful color, the sensational art of the film, until Chornaborg, during the Night on Bald Mountain sequence, was standing there on the top of that mountain. I was so terrified. I turned around and looked behind me and noticed a beam of light going over my shoulder to the screen, and I said, "That's it. What's really happening here is up in that projection room." And I begged my mother every time I went to the movies, "Can I go up there and see what's going on up there? I want to know how the magic is made." And I think that
they wouldn't let you in, and your mother, don't bother them, don't bother them. So that made it even more entrancing.
Absolutely, it was forbidden. Everything's forbidden. You know, absolutely, it was great. I loved it.
And so, but you did get in.
Finally, I did, and I saw the reels turning and the fire. It was like a breathing dragon. The fire of the carbon arc lamp house and the smoke coming out of the lamp house. It was like a living, breathing dragon. I said, "This is truly magical. I must do this. I have to somehow, in my life, create this environment where this happens, because it is pure magic."
So when you say create the environment where this happens, you didn't mean making movies, did you?
No, not so much making them, but showing them.
Showing them.
As a little kid, I had a regular 8mm camera, and I think when I would summer at my grandmother's in Oregon, I would make serial adventures with my pony and dog. You know, I taught the pony to rear up on its hind legs. And I thought I was Zorro. You know, I made episode Zorro Chapter 3. You know, and 2.5 minutes long. I did that, but I was more fascinated with the presentation. Not so much the film itself, although I appreciated it completely for everything that was within the frame. But to me, it was an important value to create a setting around that frame where people would see it in an optimal setting, and one that would allow for the director's vision to come through, and perhaps in some cases enhance it and enrich it.
Okay. And so when you saw Fantasia, how many people were in the theater with you?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 350 or 250, something like that.
Okay. And yet even that's not as large as the major movie palaces. Today,
no.
Today you introduce movies where?
At the Bob Hope Theater in Stockton, which is the former Fox California, which is a 2,042-seat theater.
Does it fill?
It does, but not for movies anymore. It fills for touring shows. But we have a classic there once a month. It's a Sunday afternoon matinee, and we recreate the whole experience. We have a theater organist that comes up out of the floor. He plays for half an hour before plays the house in, and then there are previews of coming attractions, a cartoon, sometimes a short subject, and then I come out on the stage and do some sort of a harangue with some giveaway and other movie palace stuff.
I can just hear you haranguing.
Yes, I know. It's just pure snake oil. And after that, I introduce the picture with some anecdotage that might set the stage for people, and then I'm off, because I'm basically the gasket from nothing to something. I'm not the show. The show is what's up there on the screen, and then people get the wonderful classic film in that great setting.
So that's the Bob Hope Theater in Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
And the other theater?
California Theater in Pittsburgh. I'm there usually Thursday evening, sometimes Saturday. We just ran Sunset Boulevard there, and it was well attended. And we have other pictures coming up in the future. They're not yet quite booked, but we've had some success with the Color Hitchcocks, and some other films have done relatively well. We had the last screening of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I say the last screening because Disney bought Fox, and Disney really doesn't let you put any of that wonderful stuff in theaters anymore. They want it for their Disney Plus streaming services, and so you can't see any of the great 20th Century Fox films in theaters anymore.
Okay.
It's a real shame.
Yes. So this, so this theater in Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh in the East Bay of California.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Pittsburgh, California, not to Pittsburgh across the United States.
No. Okay.
Without an H at the end. Pittsburgh that ends in a G, and that's in the East Bay, and it's a lovely little theater from 1920 that's been restored. It's called the California Theater.
Okay, and you speaking of these restored theaters, these big theaters, these you often post on your Facebook page that the death of this next theater. What is it about? Well, we have talked about what it is about these theaters, these theaters that make the movie-going process dignified and more dignified, more exciting, because it's an event, right?
Quite so. At least it used to be in the golden age of showmanship.
Yeah.
That sadly has been lost in the swirling mist of time.
Yeah. So you not only introduce movies in real time, you review movies, and those the movies you review are available for viewing. The reviews are at mabhollywood.com.
That's right. I might also add that you may find them on Facebook at Matias Bombal's Hollywood, and you may also find them at YouTube and Vimeo. So Matias Bombal's Hollywood at those locations for video content. SoundCloud for recordings of the show I do with Mary Jane Pop here in Auburn at K-High Radio, the voice of the foothills.
Yes. Yes. So how many years did you review those movies that are shown on mabhollywood.com?
That started in 2013 and lasted until July of 2017, when a studio fire took out my entire studio, and I have yet to rebuild. I hope to do it, but in the process, I lost a marvelous studio located in my home, so it took out my garage and kitchen to the studs. I was lucky to survive, but I lost half of my motion picture film print collection.
Which is,
maybe 1,000 one-sheet posters, originals from the golden era of the movies. It was really horrible, but you know, I am alive, and I still have that in my heart, and I'm going to keep doing it.
Yes, yes. And so, even though the movies that you review have been out for years, some of them for years.
Actually, if I may permit me a correction, I only review pictures that are currently in release.
Okay.
So when you see my video content that I did between 2013 and 2017, it was always new films.
Yeah.
Those reviews appeared the same day those pictures opened.
Great.
I wanted to start talking about old films, interestingly enough, and not new movies. But I discovered that the licensing of clips for that, for the internet, I wanted 2 minutes of Fred Astaire and Top Hat, and I needed to pay $4,000.
Yeah.
Yet, if I review new pictures, the studio supply scenes from the film for free with a limited license for that purpose. And so that tilted it towards new movies. And why did I start? Simply because I had been an exhibitor for years in theaters, but the movie theater business has completely collapsed, and I couldn't make a living at that anymore. So I had to adapt or die, and I carry the movie palace experience in my heart always and try to recreate it.
Yeah.
But I had to take my knowledge base and put it somewhere that it could continue to contribute to society and for my own artistic development.
And pleasure. Yeah. And it's clear from these reviews that you do get a kick out of this. It's you surrounded yourself with really beautiful props, and got the black and white idea in there. So I want to let people see a few minutes of a review of Dunkirk, which was released a couple of years ago.
Yes, now.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at that, and then come back.
This is Hollywood. Matias Bombal with you. Warner Brothers brings us Dunkirk, a picture based on real events of World War II, where the Germans had pushed the Allied soldiers of Britain, Belgium, and France to the beach at Dunkirk, only to slowly pick them off from the land and air. Evacuation resources were sourced to non-existent, and young men faced a fate of knowing death was imminent, but just didn't know when. There have been many movies that have told this story, notably a British film from 1958 from Ealing Studios, all the way through the story being a plot device in one of the best pictures I've seen this year, Their Finest. What is spectacular are the scenes in the air with real fighter planes, a feat that has not been this thrilling for audiences since the silent movie era with movies like Wings or Hell's Angels, when film cameras actually went up in the air with those early aircraft. If you choose to go see this, make it a point to find it on film, to treat yourself to the richness of a special experience that used to be the standard of a great industry, now sadly only relegated to an occasional roadshow by a director with enough clout and money to demand the experience of making a picture on film, and by result, keeping Kodak alive. This is your pal, Matias Bombal, bidding you a fond farewell. Yes, 4 years of movie reviews here at Matias Bombal's Hollywood, thanks to Chad Williams, Tony Singing Eagle, and Mark Allen Vieira in making this little wonderful world come true for you and for me. Here's to 4 and many more.
I love those on air those items, and they're all gone, huh?
They are.
Oh,
they're all gone.
I'm sorry, Matias.
So am I. We went to great trouble to create that set to really look like an authentic radio studio of the mid-40s. And here was the concept. The concept was that the film clips that I received of new films would be in the different aspect ratios or screen shapes that you perceive in the theater. Some are long and rectangular like CinemaScope, some are more boxy, some are even square. And I thought, if I presented myself in the Academy ratio, the original aspect ratio, and it looked like an old short, it would highlight the movie clip because it would be in color. And so when it dissolves from my studio to the clip, and all of a sudden, like the screen masking in the movie palaces goes out wide, it really gives extra value to the subject. And so my black and white idea was not to be so much intentional stylistically, but to be an absence of color to highlight what was in color, which was the subject matter.
Okay.
Now that was the concept, and I thought, well, if it's going to be black and white, let's create a period. So instead of using LED lighting in the studio, we went and got Mole Richardson tungsten lamps, the old, mini moles and everything else, and lit everything up the old-fashioned way. We brought Mark Vieira from Hollywood, the author of many great books, who's a genius photographer, to light the set so it looks like George Harrell had lit the set. and so
wait. George Harrell was a magnificent photographer of beautiful, handsome, gorgeous stars in the 30s and 40s.
That's right.
Oh, and you can hear what a good photographer he was from my voice. Oh, God.
Quite so.
Didn't he do Jean Harlow?
Yes, on the bearskin
rug.
That's the most iconic of many of his photos.
Yeah. Okay. And
so we wanted that look.
Succeeded.
Yeah. So that was the result that you just saw on the screen there.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry. Please accept my condolences for losing that.
Well,
But-
you march on. You
Yes,
got to
one
keep
does,
going.
yeah.
And I have to thank Mary Jane Pop because she's kept me on the radio so that I haven't lost the thread of the current releases every week.
Good.
And that has been a real godsend. She's a remarkable, undeflaggable personality that keeps marching forward and a big hero to me.
Yes, I agree. She's a great role model, a great role model, and I am just as I am talking to one person, not only you, but you. she talks to only one person, and she's just magnificent. Anyway,
Beautifully intimate.
yeah, it's wonderful. So I would like to ask you a question.
Certainly.
That I've let you know that I was going to ask. Is there? You have been interviewed many times.
Yes.
You've talked to people. People have asked you lots of questions. Is there a question that you wish people had asked that they haven't asked?
Yes, and that is the question, why? Why is it that you do what it is that you do in all of these various aspects of movies, not only as a director, because I've made my own documentaries, 3 of them, or as a radio person, or as a writer, or as a movie exhibitor, all of these various different branches of the show business. Someone will talk on a specific subject or a specific area, but they never get to the point of what is the motivation and why it is that I do it. Shall I tell you?
Is it because it's fun? Yes, please.
Sometimes it's fun. A lot of times it's a great deal of hard, thankless work.
Yes.
And you wonder, is anybody out there? Does anybody care? I'm trying to bring back a style and a representation of a period that hasn't existed in many cases for over 80 years. There is no direct connection for some people, so they look at it as an oddity, a strangeness. It's weird. There's no connection. When I was young, it was different. My grandmother remembered those period and those personalities. So, no, but for me, really, Susan, it's about making a memory for someone. When they have an experience, they take that with them the rest of their life. They remember the first time maybe they met their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and they later became married at a movie that I showed, and they come to me 20 years later, I met my wife in the balcony when you showed that movie. That's what it's about. It's certainly not about money, because there isn't any. And there is the moments that are fun and wonderful when I get to work with famous film actors or interview them or do shows with them. Recently I did something with Perry King. Yesterday I was interviewed by the son of Joaquin Garay, who was the voice of Panchito the Rooster in Disney's The Three Caballeros. His son came up and is doing a documentary about his pop. So I see these people all the time. Or at the time I interviewed Rod Steiger, which was a fascinating interview.
Yeah.
So there are those moments that are certainly rewarding personally and wonderful to connect to people that mean something to you. But really, it's about making memories that people carry their whole life. And if it's something I have done in any of these disciplines, has touched someone to the point where they think about it the rest of their life, then I've done something successful that's worthwhile.
Yes. And, well, that's thrilling. That's and I understand that it's a lot of hard work. And sometimes people don't appear to appreciate it. Don't appear physically to appreciate it. Sometimes you don't hear about it, people's appreciation. But there is this quote of Mark Twain's, "Whatever a body is obliged to do is work. Whatever a body is not obliged to do is play." And granted, this is work, but it's also, isn't it, play for you?
Well, it beats digging ditches.
Yes, that's true. Okay. So the moment I met you, I was interested in your name, Matias.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that not only so you were born in Brazil?
Santiago de Chile.
Sorry, Chile.
Yes.
Chile.
Mm-hmm.
And you had so is that where your name came from?
Yes, well, there are 2 stories relative to this. The origin of the name, of course, is from the Bible, where after the death of Christ, there were 12 apostles, except Judas Iscariot offed himself in a field, so they needed to get another apostle, the 12. So they chose between Barabbas and Matthias. So
Okay.
Matthias is where the name comes from.
Okay.
But also in Chile, there's a very popular wine called Don Matias, which was named after the founder of the vineyard. And I have a suspicion that my parents, my father, who was a professor of Romanticism in German literature and comparative literature at the University of Santiago, Chile, and my mother, who was studying language and visiting there, they may have perhaps had a bottle of that wine. And suddenly I was Matias, because there weren't any others in my family in the history of my mother or father.
Okay. So I noted that your father taught comparative literature, but it was Chilean literature?
Spanish and German.
Okay, so
German.
he was, my first impression was that he was an English major. So, oh well.
He struggled with English, but he spoke 7 languages
Wow.
fluently, and I was always impressed by that. You know, having a pop that you admire and then think, you know, even if I worked every day of my life, I would still only have this much of what he's managed to accomplish.
Wow.
So, you know, I just went in a different direction. I went away from scholarly education and went
Okay.
into my own scholarly studies of
Yeah.
the cinema. Interestingly enough, just really quickly, my father said to me shortly before he died, Matias, you know, you should not, you've always championed the art of others. You should do your own thing. Create your own art, because otherwise you're like the caretaker of cemetery of the past of art. And based on those words, I started the Matias Bombal's Hollywood Review, because then I was creating something that was truly my own.
Yeah.
So those words linger with me to this day.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Okay. So, do you want to continue interviewing? Reviewing.
Surely.
And maybe someday you'll get back to that.
I'd like to have the studio again. Of course, you can hear me every week on K-High Radio
Yeah.
or all at the outlets, Facebook, Matias Bombal's Hollywood, and SoundCloud, MAB Hollywood, and of course the website, mabhollywood.com.
Yes. And, okay, so if you... I just adore what you do.
Thank you.
Yes, and everything. Every time I see a picture that you posted on Facebook, and investigate your movie reviews, I get this clear image of a person who values the past, values the art of the past, and wants the art of the present to be as elegant and eloquent.
Oh, I wish that could be so.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, there are wonderful, young, creative people now making remarkable, beautiful things. We just have to seek them out.
Yes.
And I hope that through these reviews I can point those things out. But I do respect the past, because I think we have to learn from it. And so many people are focused on what's next that they lose sight. And
Of what was in the past.
Right, and I think there are values there. I think
Okay.
it's a common misconception that everything in the past was old or no good. So
Yeah.
it's not so. There's some
Okay.
beautiful treasures there.
I agree with you. Yes, of course. All right. My guest has been Matias Bombal. Bombal.
Bombal.
I beg your pardon, Matias.
That's all right.
I beg your pardon. You can learn more about him at mabhollywood.com, and he has a Facebook page, and so look for him and learn and delight. Matias, it's been a pleasure having you as my guest.
The pleasure was mine. You're a treasure in this community, and I'm so glad to know you.
Oh, good. Thank you. And thank you for watching. I will see you again.